You can start if you want.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Cesar Santos, the Environment European Commission. I have agreed to record this presentation on the Commission proposal for a batteries regulation to be used in the flagship lab of the resourcing project. So I will walk you through the main features of the Commission's proposal for a new battery regulation. The background of this proposal has to do with the evaluation of the former batteries directive, and in parallel with an initiative of the GROW to come up with sustainability requirements for certain types of batteries. The former Commission decided to merge these two legislative proposals, and the proposal was finally adopted in December 2020. So this initiative was also mentioned in the Strategic Action Plan for Batteries adopted in 2018, and is the regulatory arm of a whole repertoire of policy measures in support of the emerging battery value chain in the EU. The objectives are to adopt common rules across the internal market for the placing on the market of batteries, and it takes a holistic approach, so it covers all the phases of the lifetime of batteries, from the sourcing of raw materials to the end of life disposal, treatment, and recycling of batteries, and is one of the main deliverables of the Green Deal for Europe, and of course it attempts to promote a more circular economy in the Union, as well as reducing social and environmental impacts associated to the different stages of the battery life cycle. So to do this, the proposal is structured in a number of chapters and articles, more than 80 articles. The main features for the sustainability chapter have to do with introduction of carbon footprint provisions. I will explain in more detail later. Then we have set minimum levels of recycled content for certain materials and for certain types of batteries that become gradually stricter over time. And then we introduce some information and minimum requirements on performance and durability for certain types of batteries. So this is to ensure that batteries placed in the internal market are progressively more sustainable. There's also some provisions on safety. We did a gap analysis of safety requirements for batteries in the EU, and let's say the proposal attempts to fill the existing gaps. Then there are the classic labeling requirements to inform consumers. And then Chapter 7 deals with the end-of-life management requirements for batteries. This is what would actually replace the existing batteries directive. So this has to do with the collection of batteries once they become waste, with the objectives on recycling efficiency and the objectives on the material recovery of the most valuable elements in batteries. This is linked, by the way, with the provisions on the minimum recycled content. Then there are the obligations on waste producers, the known as the extended producer responsibility obligations, in the form of financial contributions towards the collection, treatment, and recycling of batteries, and different reporting obligations on economic actors and the member states. Then we have a separate chapter on the supply chain due diligence obligations. Here, the intention is to make sure that the provenance of raw materials going into battery manufacturing is free from unacceptable social and environmental practices. And so any battery that is placed in the European market, actually not any battery, but there is a scope for to place the burden on the larger batteries, they need to fulfill these supply chain due diligence requirements, and I will go into a bit of detail later. Then the regulation tries to put a bit of order in the market for second life batteries without going too much in detail, because this is an emerging market and it's difficult to foresee where this will go. But to say that the regulation tries to enable market operators to decide if a battery is fit for the purpose of a second life, as in repurposing or in remanufacturing, and it empowers economic operators with the necessary information to take those decisions, whether batteries should enjoy its second life or should go to recycling straight away. In terms of the process, the Commission proposal was adopted in December 2020, accompanied by an impact assessment. Extensive stakeholder consultations were held, and the proposal is now more than halfway through the ordinary legislative procedure, with very intense discussions both in Council and Parliament. In the side of the Parliament, the ENVI committee is taking the leading voice. A vote of the proposed amendments is scheduled for February 2022. So, and the vote in the plenary has been postponed until March this year, 2022. To my recollection, more than 1,000 amendments have been tabled by the different political groups. In general, the Parliament wants to see more ambition across the different provisions in the proposal, from recycling efficiencies to recycled content, to the collection of waste batteries, to performance and durability requirements, or to supply chain due diligence requirements for all batteries, to give you a flavor of some of the amendments that are being proposed. On the side of the Council, the proposal is now in the hands of the French presidency. We've had already discussions with the Portuguese and the Slovenian presidencies in 2021. The French presidency has expressed its intention to reach a general approach by mid-March. This means that the Council has a negotiation mandate to find a political agreement with the Parliament. This could take place in the first half of 2022 or in the second half of this year, already under the Czech presidency. As most of you know, the role of the Commission in this process is as an honest broker to facilitate the agreement between Parliament and Council and ensure the best possible regulatory outcome of the process. If the form of the instrument stays as a regulation, as it seems it will be the case, this will be directly applicable in all 27 member states, although there can be some nuances to this, depending on what the final legal basis of the regulation is. Member states will have the possibility to go further in terms of minimum requirements, particularly in this Chapter 7 on the end-of-life management of batteries. A few words on the recycling aspects. So here we're talking about the collection rates of waste batteries. This is important. It's the first step towards ensuring an availability of secondary raw materials that will go into fresh battery manufacturing. So the proposal tries to increase the levels of collection of waste batteries over time to reach 70% by 2030 for portable, and a new battery category that is being introduced for batteries for light means of transport. Then we have the recycling efficiencies for different types of batteries, and here again the ambition increases progressively, and by 2030 the intention is that the recycling efficiencies will be very high, for particularly for lithium-ion batteries, and also for other types of batteries. Then we have linked to these recycling efficiency targets, we have the targets for the material recovery for four materials: copper, cobalt, nickel, and lithium. There's a lot of discussion around this, but again, let's say that the proposal is to increase the ambition progressively from 2025 to 2030 and achieve quite ambitious levels of recovery targets. Obviously, these two objectives are interlinked, the recycling efficiencies and the recovery targets of materials. And in turn, these are connected to the um, objectives on recycled content, which we are setting for 2030 and 2025, only for cobalt, lithium, nickel, and lead in new batteries and above 2 kilowatt hour capacity threshold. Again, on this, there are different views. The Commission is adamant that signal needs to be sent to markets to ensure that at least some minimum percentages of recycled content are present in batteries placed in the union market from 2030. So again, you have to take all these targets together because they make sense together. And what we are telling the Parliament and the Council is that if they want to change some of the targets, they need to see, they need to consider the effects that these changes will have in the targets for the other measures. A few words on the due diligence, supply chain due diligence requirements, otherwise said responsible or ethical sourcing. So here the intention is to um, create a level playing field and ensure that all economic operators apply similar rules. What they're being asked to do is to put in place a policy that looks at the supply chain, brings transparency and accountability, and gets rid of unacceptable practices for social and environmental aspects from human rights to child labor to contamination of aquifers. So this whole range of social and environmental risks which are listed in the annex to the proposal. And what we're asking economic operators to do is to build on top of these well-known OECD due diligence guidelines and to add a layer of third-party verification to ensure that the policies are well implemented and that there is a degree of third-party involvement, of independent verification of all these um, uh, policies, and that includes the disclosure of information towards the general public and authorities, member states, and commission. So we imagine that this will be a gradual process of improvement and this engagement from supply chain partners who are not ready to uphold these high social and environmental standards. Couple of words on the provisions on carbon footprint. So this is a novelty in a way that we are imposing these obligations to progressively declare the carbon footprint of the batteries that are placed on the market. Once that has been established and we have a clear understanding of the spread of the carbon footprint intensity of the different battery models, the intention is to impose an obligation to label batteries with carbon footprint performance classes. This is meant as a market differentiation mechanism, and most manufacturers are in favor of this as they see an opportunity to differentiate their products. Of course, this requires having agreed rules for the carbon footprint declaration and for the segmentation of the market in different classes. We will see what the details of the labeling is, but let's imagine something similar to the energy label that most of us are familiar with today. And once the classes are established, the intention is to establish maximum life cycle carbon footprint thresholds. So the idea is to push the market to place in the union market only batteries that attain those maximum carbon footprint thresholds. And so this again sends a signal to market that manufacturers need to make an effort to decarbonize the various stages of the life cycle of batteries. They're given plenty of time to adapt. We're talking about 2027. So it's a clear roadmap to give sufficient time to both domestic and foreign manufacturers to adapt. All this is being done on the basis of the existing product environmental footprint category rules for lithium-ion batteries, but there's still a lot of work that needs to complete those rules and to extend it to the most prevalent battery chemistries on the market and turn this exercise into a piece of secondary legislation that will be adopted or proposed by the Commission to the member states for adoption. A few words on the other aspects of the proposal. So performance and durability requirements, these are what we call eco-design type of requirements. So they will be different depending on the battery categories. For portable batteries of general use, the intention is to push the market towards more durable and performing batteries. And for industrial and EV batteries, the intention is to impose information requirements for EV batteries, and for industrial batteries, minimum requirements for electrochemical performance and durability, again with the same objective to push the market towards more durable and performing batteries. Once all this is in place, so once we know what a sustainable or green battery is with some recycled content, with low carbon, with responsible sourcing, batteries that are durable and performing. All this will be cleaned off in green public procurement criteria, and contracting authorities will be required to source only those batteries with lower environmental impact. So the intention is to leverage all this work and capture it in some green public procurement criteria towards 2027. On the labeling side, as said before, this is about informing consumers. So the intention is to ensure that batteries labeled with a QR code that will provide access to secondary information on a number of aspects from the carbon footprint to the durability, performance, information for different economic operators on how to disassemble the battery, so as to enable different stages of the battery life cycle, including second life operations. Final concluding words to say that this is what's in the Commission's proposal. The co-legislators, the Council and the Parliament, are taking their positions. Changes are to be expected. But what is clear is that we are testing some new ground in terms of policy and regulation for products. So there's a lot of people looking at what happens with this regulatory proposal to see if provisions on carbon footprint finally are retained, on recycled content, on responsible sourcing. And depending on what happens with the batteries proposal, we believe that this will inform future sustainable product policy proposal. So there's a lot more at stake here that only regulating the emerging battery value chain in the EU. And I think I stop there. So have a great policy lab.